Everybody has time. It's what you have. It's what you do with your time. It's not, I don't have time for this. It's, I don't make time for this. And for me, I make time for it.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Brian Orr here, aka DJ Twist, and you are listening to the Twist Life podcast. My guest today is Robert Leonard. Robert is involved in all sorts of things. If you think I'm a busy man, you got to see this guy's schedule. He's trading stocks and options. He's investing in real estate. He hosts his own podcast, or two, or maybe more. I don't know. We'll talk to him about it and talk to him about everything else that's going on. So how you doing, Rob?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you, bud. I appreciate it. Can you tell me a little bit about your two podcasts, since we are in the podcast world right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have two podcasts. One is called Millennial Investing. On that show, we talk about mainly stock investing. That's the main objective, is to talk about how to invest in stocks. But we also talk about personal finance a lot, because I think to be a successful investor, you need to have a strong personal finance base. So I like to talk a lot about personal finance. And we also talk about entrepreneurship, side hustles, and even some personal development. Those are the main categories. And it's really anything that you can do to invest your time or money better. That's what we're going to talk about there on the Millennial Investing Show. My second show, I'm also a real estate investor, like you mentioned. So that show is simple in its name. It's just called Real Estate Investing. And on that podcast, we talk about all kinds of different ways that real estate investors who have done no deals to maybe 3 or 4 deals, so really new investors, can get started in real estate.
Yeah, really cool. If you couldn't tell by now, his podcast voice is nailed to a T. He's got that smooth radio voice. If you guys are tired of hearing my voice already, make sure you go ahead and check out his podcast. And I was a guest on one of your shows recently, which should be, I guess, airing sometime soon. Is that right?
Yeah, so you were on the Real Estate Investing Show. That'll be coming out in the next few weeks.
Cool. Yeah, we talked about my real estate journey, which I haven't talked any about at all on my show so far yet. So if you guys want to hear that more inside scoop, I'll give you guys the links in the show notes and stuff when Robert launches on his podcast. So Rob, tell me a little bit more about yourself personally. Where are you from? What else is going on in your life on the day to day?
Yeah, so I'm from the greater Boston area. I grew up in this area. I've lived here my whole life. I started racing motocross when I was 4 years old. That was kind of my whole life, from the time I was 4 till I was about 14 or 15. So about 10 to 12 years I raced. And I raced the local circuit for about 10 years or so. It did really well. I won about 13 championships. And then we decided to go to the national level. And my father and I and my brother came sometimes. We traveled the country and raced the national circuit. And I ended up number 2 in the country, really in the world, in my age division or bracket, if you will. And so my whole life, I was always just going to be a professional motocross racer. You know, I was one of the rising stars in ATV motocross. And so I didn't really have a plan. I had no idea I had no plan to go to college, never studied anything financial or anything like that. My family has a blue collar background. No one in my family's ever gone to college. And then when I was 14, I was about a year and a half, 2 years away from turning professional, and my dad took away racing. We had somebody very close to us pass away, and so he didn't want that to happen to me. And so I stopped racing motocross, kind of cold turkey right there, and we never raced again. And so I figured out, well, what am I going to do with my life now? That was my future. When people would talk about what do you want to be when you grow up, for me, it was motocross. And a lot of times being a professional athlete is a little bit of a pipe dream for people. But for me, it was real. I had over 60 major sponsors. I had, some of the biggest names in motocross backing me. And so it wasn't really a matter of if I was going to go to that next level. It was more of a when, and it was kind of just a timing thing. So I really had to figure out what I was going to do. And so I stumbled upon Warren Buffett, of all things, and I got super passionate about stock investing, decided to go to college, got my degree in finance and investing, and I ended up getting my MBA. And now I work in the corporate world, do a bunch of side hustles. I'm an investor in real estate, do all kinds of other things as well.
So first of all, I'm from New York. So as far as we're concerned, there's not really any great Boston area. So we'll just start with that part.
Fair enough.
Right. We'll skip that. So that's interesting. Tell me a little bit about you said you stopped racing at 14 and then you discovered Warren Buffett and decided to go to college. So we're talking about high school years right now, and sort of timely in a lot of parents that I talk to on this podcast are home now with their kids. Talk to me about how you discovered Warren Buffett of all things and what put you on the course for that at that particular age.
So I actually found a gentleman named Timothy Sykes. Not sure if any of your listeners or even yourself have heard of him, but I don't know how popular he is these days, but back then he was very popular in the penny stock picking space. He had turned, I forget exactly how much, I want to say $10,000 into a couple million trading penny stocks. And of course, being a 13, 14-year-old kid, that was very alluring. That's what I wanted. And so I started studying everything I could, but I quickly realized that that wasn't really a great strategy. It wasn't really how to build wealth. And something didn't sit right to me. I've always kind of been skeptical of that type of thing. And so it almost seemed too good to be true. And so just kind of started studying investing in general. And that's, when you start studying investing, one of the first people that's going to come up is Warren Buffett. I mean, he's the Oracle of Omaha, the greatest investor of all time. A lot of people would consider. So he's just going to come up. And funny enough, I found Warren Buffett partially through the first podcast I ever listened to back in 2014, 2015, which is We Study Billionaires, which is the investing podcast network that I'm associated with my two podcasts now. So it's kind of come full circle, but it just through podcasts and then through starting with actually day trading penny stocks and then just stumbled into value investing. Warren Buffett, as you can see behind me, I have a lot of books on my shelf, many of which are Warren Buffett. And I think there's about 197 books on the bookshelf behind me. I think 20 or so are maybe Warren Buffett books. So big reader and just kind of fell into it that way.
Have you read all those?
Not all of them, no. I've read a lot of them, a good chunk of them, but I had gotten a lot of them and then I went to audiobooks. So a lot of my time is spent on audiobooks. So I'll eventually make my way through them because I enjoy the physical books more than the audiobooks. But
So let's go a little more into this podcast world. I find it interesting that you first discovered your or part of the initial wave of your interest in investing came through podcasting. It came full circle back and you're on the same network. Was that intentional?
yes and no. So it was the first podcast I ever listened to. It just so happens they were the first one in the value investing space. They were they were really the first show to study Warren Buffett. It was dedicated to all things Warren Buffett, basically. I was a huge fan of him, so it kind of just fit. And then I'd listened to the show for 4 or 5 years. And then I heard them on the show. They talked about how they wanted to launch new shows because they had built over 4 years the name brand in stock investing. They're the number one stock investing show in the whole world. And so what's very common, you'll see in the regular, traditional media on TV, they launch different series under their brand. You're starting to see the same thing in the podcast space with iHeartRadio, Spotify, all kinds of different brands are launching sister shows, if you will, under the same umbrella. And so I heard they wanted to do that, but they wanted to do it about a show called Silicon Valley, or just all about things in the Bay Area. And I said, man, I would love to be a podcast host with these guys, but I don't live in the Bay Area and I don't know a single thing about tech. So I guess I can't do this. And so fast forward a few months, I heard they wanted to do a real estate show. And that's when everything, kind of came full circle. I reached out to them and we ended up being able to work it out.
When did you start investing in real estate?
I started investing in real estate my senior year of college. I bought my first house before I walked at my college graduation.
Can you walk us through quickly about that without getting too technical? Just a little overview of how that happens as a college senior?
Basically, what happened was going into college, my parents told me, listen, you're going to have to pay rent when you graduate college. You're going to start earning a salary. You're going to have to pay rent. I said, okay, that's understandable, but I'm not doing that. I was the first one in my family to ever go to college. So I had to come up with a way to pay for it. And so I worked nearly full-time, but not quite, at a local credit union. I started as a teller. I worked my way up. I became a loan officer and ended up spending 2 or 3 years as a loan officer at the bank while going through college. So I knew everything that was needed to get these loans to buy a house. And so all through college, I saved up as much money as I could. I positioned my credit exactly how I needed to be able to get the loan for when I got close to graduation. And what also helped was they make you go through a financial education course when you become an employee at the bank, because you need to be a good steward of your financials if you're going to be working at a bank. So long story short, I did that. I saved up as much money as I could. I bought a small condo with 2 bedrooms. I lived in one of them and I rented out the other one.
You seem to be pretty thorough in anything that you undertake. Do you think that that is a product of your parents, or is that a product of what you were kind of ingrown through your years in competing in motocross, or a combination of both?
Combination of both. I think it came from my dad, but it then flowed through my dad to me and then into motocross and just has flourished into everything else.
What's a specific lesson that you can recall from your youth in competitive sports that you carry with you today?
I really just discovered this not too long ago. I was participating in a conference down in New Jersey a couple weeks back, and I was guesting on another show, and he started to pry a little bit, and this concept came up to me that I had never really thought of, but I think it's really interesting and something that I've been thinking a lot about. And it's this idea that when I was racing motocross, the thing that set me apart from everybody else was I was this 10-year-old kid, and I would hit the biggest jumps on the track. These were some jumps that only professionals were doing, right? Even other adults, not professionals, but other adults wouldn't even hit. And then you see this little 10-year-old kid hitting these big jumps like you see in the X Games. And so that really is what set me apart. And I mean, I was young, I didn't know what I was doing, but my dad did. And so I relied on him and I said, Dad, is my bike capable of making this jump? And if he said yes, then I would go for it. I trusted him and I knew he knew what he was talking about. So I would go for it. And he never let me down. It always worked. And so what I relate that back to is mentors. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to know, like, I didn't know I was going to make that jump. I didn't know how to, go about it or anything, but my dad did. He was my mentor. And so he taught me that. And so it's the same in real estate. It's the same in stock investing. It's the same in side hustles. It's really the same in anything. You find a mentor, you have an idea, you talk to them about it. They'll help you through it. They'll guide you. And then you go out and execute and you do what they say. And then you can reach your goals that way.
How do you find a mentor?
So many different ways. I mean, there's one of the things that I'm super passionate about talking about is that you don't need a one-on-one mentor. I mean, that's ideal, right? If you have someone you can call up or text or even hop on a Zoom call with, that's ideal, but you don't have to. I mean, there's my favorite entrepreneur. His name's Andy Frisella. He'll never mentor me. He's just too busy. He has so much time going on. He has so much going on with his time, but he has 300 plus podcasts. So what do? I go through and listen to every single one. Anything that I would ask him has been answered in those podcasts. So I can be indirectly mentored by them that way. And that's what I think is the best way to be mentored by someone if you don't think you can get access to them.
Yeah, that's smart. That's what I heard. You hear that a lot about reading books, like, you read a Warren Buffett book or a Tony Robbins or something. You get 20 years of experience in 400 pages, without having to live through that. And what you're saying is you could certainly do that through podcasts as well. That's a good point. So we talked about reading a lot of books. We talked about listening to a lot of books. Have you considered putting your knowledge to paper?
I am. I'm working on a book right now, actually.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so my book is going to be about long distance real estate investing. And we won't necessarily go into the technicalities of it, but basically there are some resources out there that teach you about long distance real estate investing. Some of them are actually even pretty good, and that's really what got me started. But I found that there was some gaps in that space, and I thought that I could make it a little bit more simple and just really walk through people through it as to how I do it with my strategy. And so I'm just putting that in paper and going to put that in a book.
That's really awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I can imagine that that's a pretty difficult thing to do, because I've considered writing a book myself, and multiple times I just hit I've never been a writer, so I've had like this permanent writer's block. I guess it's just never really happened. But it brings me to a question: given the current state and condition of the world and things that are going on, people are somewhat limited in what they can do, but at the same time, I feel like the doors are wide open for something that they never considered doing. Something like writing a book or something like starting a podcast. And you're involved heavily in both right now. Can you talk to me and talk to the listeners about how to maybe get started on one of those projects? Like, how do you start writing a book, or how do you start a podcast?
I think the biggest thing, whether it's a podcast a book, a side hustle, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you're going to work on, I think the absolute biggest thing is setting the right expectations. If you go into something with the wrong expectations, it's gonna turn out bad. If you go in and you say my expectation is to finish this book in a month in terms of the writing, and then you get to a month and you're only done a chapter or two, that's not going to feel like a success. You're going to be discouraged. You're not going to want to finish, and then you're gonna fail because you're not gonna have the courage or excitement or desire to continue on. So I think it's really setting realistic expectations from the beginning, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's a book, a podcast, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, set realistic expectations and then go about it that way, just so you don't get discouraged and so you still have that excitement to work on that project.
Have you tried to reach out to somebody who is an author currently to help you mentor in that project?
Yes and no, not really. I mean, I've had a lot of really great authors on the podcast, and I've talked to some people here and there, but I haven't really sat down and talked to anybody about it. I've watched some YouTube videos just to read about and learn about some of the ways that other authors, self-published authors have done it, but also the two founders of the podcast network that my podcasts are part of, Preston Pish and Stig Broderson, they've both written a few books themselves and they've done really well. So when the time is right, when I need to get my questions answered or ask them anything, I'm sure that they'll be happy to help. But for now, I'm just really focused on getting the words on the paper, right? I'm setting my expectations. I'm not expecting to have this done in 30 days, 60 days, even 90 days. I need to get my words on paper first, get everything, all my thoughts, ideas out there. And then I can worry about where I'll have those questions for other people. Like, how do I actually turn this into a book? How do I do the design? How do I get this published? How do I, go about all of these different steps?
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. So let's back up a little bit to the podcast portion of it. You discovered that you wanted to be a podcast host. You found the network that you wanted to be on. You reached out to the network with an idea, or they had the idea, and you said, "I'm the guy for you." Tell me about how you took those next steps to creating your podcast with your theme, with your conversations, with your questions that you had for guests, and how you've been able to develop into such a successful show.
Yeah. So I reached out to them because they were doing the real estate show, and I reached out and said, "Hey, I'd be super interested. I think I'd be a good fit for it. I'm passionate about it." And X, Y, and Z gave all the reasons as to why I thought I'd be a good host for it. And they said, no, they said, "We don't want to give you the real estate show." I said, okay. And so I needed to find a way that I could provide value. And I didn't give up because I knew it was something I really, really wanted. And so I continued to work. We continued to go back and forth. We continued conversations. And I was a stock investor as well. And they take articles, stock investing articles, like almost like blog posts. And so I started to write some of those for their website. And they really, really liked my work. And so they really liked working with me. They liked the work I was producing. And so what they were able to do was they said, "Look, we're not really ready to give you the real estate show, but let's do a millennial investing show. We'll do similar to what we do on our show, except let's do it about millennials, people 22 to say 35 or 40. I said, okay, I'll do that. And so we did that for a few months and that went really, really well. Like you mentioned, it's been pretty successful. And so they said, "You know what? You want to do another show?" And I said, "Yeah." And then so I ended up getting the real estate show as well. So now I have both. And so I just wanted to talk about that really quick because you just can't give up necessarily just because you're faced with an objection. You can't give up. You got to overcome that and you got to keep providing value and show why you deserve what they're giving you. I mean, they had hundreds and hundreds of people that wanted to do this. It's the number one stock investing podcast in the world. I mean, people would love for that opportunity. So you need to provide why you're different and provide value to them. Now, in terms of actually growing the show, the big thing is quality content, of course, first and foremost, but not just what you talk about. You need to have high quality audio, you need to have high quality editing, and you need to have high quality graphics. So you need to have your artwork look very professional, very clean, and it needs to be eye catching. We personally, as you can see, if you're looking at this on video, on my mic, we have our graphics. These are the graphics for the show, and you can see my face on them. And that's just the brand of what we do. And so that really resonates with a lot of people. I hear a lot of people say they love the brand. And we also spend a lot of time on editing. So when you get an episode recorded, it's very raw And so we go in and we spend hours and hours and hours and hours editing. And sometimes it seems like it's too much. It's like, is this really worth it? But we always make sure we have the highest quality audio possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, today I am speaking through my iPhone headset because that is the highest quality the highest quality audio possible. Again, given our current state as we're recording this, but hopefully, my audience isn't too alienated by this. And with your smooth MC voice, they can certainly tune in for the duration on this one. So this is fun. This is fun, Robert. Okay, one more thing. Talk to me a little bit about you mentioned you have a full-time job. You're hosting 2 podcasts. You have all sorts of designations behind your name: MBA, BSBA, CMA, MTV. I don't know what it is. All these things. Talk to me about how you find the time to do all of this. Nobody has time to do these things.
Everybody has time. It's what you have. It's what you do with your time. It's not, I don't have time for this. It's, I don't make time for this. And for me, I make time for it. And I wake up with the current circumstances, we're obviously dealing with COVID-19 at this point in time. We're recording this on April 1st. But in normal circumstances, I'm up at 4:30 every single day. I'm in the gym by 5, in the showers by 6, and at work by 6:30. So I have a very rigid schedule. I'm up early. I get my work done. And it's something I'm super passionate about. I think if you're passionate about it, you make the time for it. And it's just one of those things. It's just, people always want like a shortcut, or how can I quickly get there or do this? And I don't have an answer for that, because I don't think there is one. There is no shortcut. There's no quick answer. Do X, Y, and Z, and you'll get there. It's just put in hard work, put your nose to the stone, and do the hard work that it takes to get all this stuff done. And for me, I've been able to do that because I wake up early, I work really hard, and I stay super organized. I think organization is helpful, and I use different things, but I have my task list that has about 1,000 different things, and that can be overwhelming. But I know I have these things due today, these things due tomorrow, and those due the next day. And if it's not due today, I'm not worried about it. I'll worry about it when those things get there. So that's really how I do my time management as best I can.
Yeah, that's really good. There's a lot of good points in there. All right, Rob, so let's jump into our closing segment here, which is what I'm still calling rapid fire. Looking for a twist type name for this. So if any of your branding people want to throw some options in at me. So I'm going to hit you with a few questions, quick answers, just have a little bit of fun and see where we go. You ready?
Absolutely.
Cool. Who is your favorite superhero?
Warren Buffett or my dad would really be the best answer, those two. But because my dad is the closest thing to a superhero there is in real life. But if I had to pick a fictional character, probably Superman.
What is the strangest thing you've ever eaten?
Maybe I'll just say alligator. Maybe it's not that weird, but for me at the time, it was probably the weirdest thing ever.
If you could go to Mars, what would you do for fun?
Ride my dirt bike.
Yeah, makes sense. Are you still riding?
Yeah, so I actually just got back into riding last year. So I'm not doing it like before. It was a full-time thing. I was missing school Mondays, most Thursdays and Fridays, and I mean it was all we did. It was our whole life. Today I race, once, twice a month. I ride my dirt bike every once in a while on the weekends, and focus most of my time on actually riding mini dirt bikes, which is just kind of fun, cheap, safe. I'm not going to get hurt, and so yeah, I'm back on the bike a little bit.
Cool. Where would you go if you were invisible?
I go really wherever I want, even though I'm not invisible. So I don't know if there's anywhere that I would go being invisible, really. I mean,
nobody you want to spy on or anything sneaky?
Yeah, I might follow around Warren Buffett, see what he's got going on for a day. But yeah, that's probably what I'd do. I'd probably follow around Warren Buffett for a day, see what he's got going on in a normal day. Although I don't know if I'd do that this time of the year, or how old he is now. I'd like to do that back when he was maybe a little younger, but yeah.
Okay, so invisibility and time travel, we have our answer. Warren Buffett at a younger Warren Buffett running through his day. Deal.
Maybe Jordan Belfort too. He would be an interesting one.
Yeah, that would probably be interesting for sure, and that would be timely as well, right? That would be after he started trading.
Exactly.
How do you feel about cinnamon?
Love it. My dad hates it, but I love it.
Finish this sentence. When I dance, I look like...
a moron.
Have you ever tried something you knew you would be really bad at? And if so, what was it?
Probably the first thing was photography. I was horrible at it at first, but I love it. It's one of those things I love doing. It probably, if money was no object, I'd probably become a photographer of all things. So I was horrible at it. Still not that great at it, but something I like.
Cool. What is your least favorite beverage?
Soda. I don't drink soda ever. So yeah, I'd probably say soda.
If you were running for high school president, what would your campaign slogan be?
In high school, I actually ran for judge and I won that campaign. So I think whatever my campaign was, it worked. I don't remember necessarily what it was. Maybe free lunch for everyone or some great trip or experience. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it'd be something along those lines.
Okay. If you had your own country, what would you name it?
Man, these questions are hard. Things I've never thought of before. I would name, I don't know, Land of the Free, maybe.
Okay. What is
maybe something to do with motocross even, I don't know.
All right. Your country's flag would be a dirt bike for sure?
Checkered flag.
Ah, there you go. Smart. Okay. What is the last thing you liked on social media?
The last thing I think I liked on social media was probably a TikTok video.
Cool. Are you into it?
I don't remember exactly what the video was, but it was probably some pit bike or dirt bike video and probably some sort of TikTok. Yeah, I don't make a ton of content on there, but I think they're hilarious videos. They're a ton of fun to watch and they're a huge waste of time. And, you know, they're not going to get you to your goals. So definitely don't spend time on there if you're trying to accomplish a bunch of things. If you're like trying to write a book, it's just a big distraction, but it is fun to check them out.
I like the shuffle videos, the dancing.
Yeah, the dancing videos, they're all cool.
Wild.
I mean, there's some really funny things.
All right. What is your favorite number?
I know that's such a simple question, but it's hard because I raced my whole life as number 7. And then when I stopped racing, that number went away and I've come back as number 33. But I think my favorite number is still 7.
Interesting. I have 33 tattooed on my arm, by the way. Different story for another time. What will you never do?
I mean, there's a lot of things I'll never do. And I think about them from time to time and I'm like, man, I would never do that. But here on the spot, I mean, there really isn't that many crazy things that I wouldn't do. I've kind of been a daredevil my whole life, so I'm open to try a lot of different things. There's a lot of foods that I probably wouldn't eat. That stuff kind of creeps me out a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that. Mine, I think mine would be skydiving, but I swore I would never do it, but I've been contemplating it recently.
I mean, I drop out of the sky on my dirt bike, so I might as well jump out of a plane with a parachute at least.
Right. Okay. Final question. Give advice to your teenage self in 2 words.
Keep going.
Nice. All right, Rob, this was a lot of fun, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Can you give us again your social media and your website, how people can find you?
Yeah, best way to connect with me is probably on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active. Username is Robert ATTIP. And so that's Robert at TIP. That's my social media handle across all of them: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere. That's my username. You can find the podcast by searching Millennial Investing or Real Estate Investing on any of your favorite podcast players. Those will come up. If you're interested in learning more about any type of investing, side hustles, personal finance, anything along those lines, join our Facebook group. We have an awesome community of people that's growing really, really fast. We're all learning together. You can find that on Facebook by just searching Millennial Investing or Real Estate Investing and look for the groups and look for the graphic.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much, Brian.